Hey cats and kittens, Dwayne Lay from the LeanHRBlog again with part two. The answers to Chris Ponder's questions from Extreme HR. Today's questions reflecting on our careers. Did I face challenges coming in because I was new and or young? Well, definitely the new part, right? As I mentioned in the last post, my background's not HR, so I was recruited in to help solve some problems. The issues that led to is I didn't have an HR background, so it was tough for me to speak with any authority when it came to actual HR issues. And I'm sure that there's a lot of young HR professionals out there that run into the same problems. So if I had to give advice on how to deal with that, I would say your best bet is, just spend some time, think logically about what has to happen. Don't get too tied up in the wisdom of the ages when it comes to HR. A lot of what we deal with outside of specifics when you're dealing with legal issues or labor relations really should be common sense. Some of it's management 101. And I think that where people lose sight of that is when they get their emotions tied up into it. So I think a lot of what HR can bring to the table is kind of stepping back and being that uninvolved third party to help kind of mitigate the emotional waters a little bit and try to bring some sanity to some very heated conversations. So if I had a degree in relation to my profession, did it assist you? Well, I do not. My undergraduate work was done in computer science and psychology, which I suppose is a little related to what I do. And then I have an MBA with not an emphasis in HR. So yeah, I'm not specifically an HR guy by training. Again, I think it's more of an approach of overall business acumen and understanding how departments relate to each other. I think that's really the part that's brought more value to me, and that's really more life experience than it is education. A major mistake I've made in my career that I learned from. Wow. I haven't read these before I started, by the way, so this is all kind of coming off the top. I'd say probably the biggest mistake that I've made, specifically as it involves HR. Coming into HR, I worked with a absolutely phenomenal team, and we were all very close, and we all had a lot of fun together. And when you change teams, you kind of forget that dynamic, right? And you forget that you've got to go back to ground zero and start building relationships with new people. So that was the tough thing for me, is walking away from this team that I had spent so much time with, but assuming that the same communication paths were going to be there, the same level of candor was going to be there. And that was tough, because it takes time to get to know other people. And if you don't already know them, you have to be a little more conscientious about your personal interactions, put it that way. So, I mean, the good news is, it's a very learnable experience. And it's something that once you learn that, you don't forget that anytime real soon. So I still have very good friends that were on that HR team with me when I joined it. So that was, for me, probably one of the biggest pieces I learned going into that, is just to never forget the importance of rebuilding those personal connections when you have to start over with it. A major achievement in my career that I'll never forget. Wow, boy, there's been so many. There's a lot of things I'm proud of in the work that we've done. I don't know if there's any one specific thing that I would put my finger on. I think I'm admitted kind of a certification junkie, so I'm proud of the different pieces that I've gone through with getting the MBA, getting the black belt, getting the SPHR. Each one of those I'm really proud of, because it kind of verifies that I've spent the time to know what I'm talking about and brings me some credibility to the table. So I'm proud of all those things. If I could turn back time, is there anything I would do over? Yes. I realized about a month ago that my blog has been up for over 2 years. I think we're going to come up on 3 years before too much longer. But I really neglected it early on and didn't get any value out of it. Wasn't posting regularly. So, boy, I wish I would have paid more attention to it 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, whatever it is. Because I feel like it's really brought a lot of value to me, if no one else. And it's really helped me kind of crystallize thoughts and really helped me look at what's happening in the world around me and made me pay more attention. So I wish I would have done that when I first started, instead of letting it languish for a couple of years like I did. So now that I've gotten really involved in writing it, it's brought a lot more to me, and I can see, you know, the world has opened up, and I've met so many great new people, hopefully like some of you watching this. So yeah, that's the one thing I would probably change if I had to go back. What allowed me to get where I am today, support from others, right? You can only do so much on your own, and it's really been about knowing who to talk to, knowing who to trust, and not being afraid to reach out for help. So that's probably the biggest learning I would say for that specific question. To don't be afraid to ask for help, and if you're in a position to give help, don't be afraid to offer. There, too many of us get siloed, right? We don't see beyond the front of our own desk, and we forget about the world out there. If you are new in HR, find someone who's not, and ask them to mentor you. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. And if you are experienced and you're out in the world and you're doing great things, keep an eye out for those folks who are new and help them out too, because they need it. Have you made an impact, and the results of the impact in your profession? So for the day job, over the last couple of years, we've wrangled in, I want to say it's $53 million in savings just from HR, and those hard savings. The work we're doing is, I think, pretty powerful. It's a good story to tell, just about process excellence, about how to reduce cost without necessarily reducing people. So that's really my focus for this year for the blog, is writing how to use those tools and how to find those opportunities in HR to improve. I think that there's been a lot of work done. I hope there's been a lot of work done over the last 2 years in other organizations to get better and to be more efficient with what you do. And I've said this a few times, my big fear is that when the economy rebounds and we have more pressure as HR to get more transactional instead of more strategic, because we have to hire in 50 engineers in 2 weeks, that we're going to lose sight of those changes. And so that's a big concern for me, something I'm trying to watch. But I think that's a pretty big impact we've had, the ability to roll out a global HRMS platform, dealing with transitions, dealing with culture, strong project management backgrounds. I think the ability to do all that hinges on our ability as HR to bring those people together, and then on my team, the ability to step back, take a neutral look at the way we do things, and not being afraid to challenge the status quo. So those are all really important things, but I think that from a bottom line standpoint, we've had a pretty big impact. And I think from a change management and interpersonal standpoint, we've really tried to drive the global mindset. We're a U.S. company based in Ireland, so sometimes we forget how important it is to really have that global mindset and not just work on projects in the U.S. So that's kind of become the rallying cry for my team, is that, you know, we've got to make sure we've got the right people in place and we don't neglect the rest of the world. Okay, so that was part 2. I'll be working on part 3 here momentarily, so keep an eye out for it. Thanks again to Chris Ponder and Extreme HR for asking me to be part of your series, and I will talk to you again in a few minutes.